Hello everyone. So today's film is going to be slightly different to all of the ones that I have ever really brought to you here before. Now I'm going to be discussing the topic of hair removal, in particularly laser hair removal as well as electrolysis hair removal. Now usually I am slightly more reluctant to sharing personal information about myself with you here, or with anyone at all. Throughout the many millennia, I have discovered that human beings are not the best at keeping secrets. But part of me feels that it will be very useful to some of you, perhaps to hear my own experience or advice when pursuing hair removal, whatever the context. Because when I actively decided that I was going to remove the hair from my face, and particularly my facial hair around the beard area, I didn't necessarily know who to consult with. I didn't necessarily have clearance about what to do, what options to take, or who to speak to, or all of these things. So I was a little unsure, and a lot of the procedures that I underwent were trial and error. Some of them I don't think were useful at all. Some of them were very useful. And also perhaps from what I have learned myself may be of benefit to many of you, as I know that there are so many different types of people from all around the world who very kindly come and watch the films for which that I produce and share upon this platform, www.youtube.com. I am of course someone who is male. I am a man, which might come as a surprise to many of you who were perhaps under impression otherwise. I am also the man, so by nature of that alone comes some degree of facial hair. Of course not all men develop facial hair, most do, to a certain degree. Of course it varies on individual. I am also a person that chooses to look a certain way, which by our age is considered traditionally female. So I'm very well aware of how I appear and all of that. I know that I do look traditionally female, even though I am of course male. That is an aesthetic choice. It's also an actualization of oneself, and I would say to a great degree, it isn't purely choice, it is nature. I am of course a feminine being. My physique is slightly more feminine, my voice is quite soft, my Adam's apple doesn't have that much of a presence, my eyes are quite far apart. So I am by nature more of an androgynous being, but of course I can confirm totally male. I'm somebody that likes to look neat and tidy, I like to look polished, I like to look refined, I like things to be prim and proper and in order, I like things to be functional. So with all that being said, I'm sure that you can probably understand that when I first developed facial hair and began to have a real growth on my face, certainly in the beard area, for somebody that prefers to look more feminine, or for what our age considers to be more traditionally feminine, at times, of course, it was challenging and slightly traumatic. But one shall not be a victim, one shall be victorious, and I have certainly had many a victory against the nuisance for which bears residence within the epidermis above my jaw. So I predominantly began to develop a growth on hair around my chin, particularly around the central area of the chin, round here. These two areas in particular were very, very strong, and there was a lot of strong hair growing there. On the rest of the face there wasn't so much at all. Now because I started to remove the hair whilst I was still developing, whilst my beard was still coming into its own, I had began removing it. So I never really got to see what I would have looked like with a full beard. God forbid, I do not plan to see what I would look like with a full beard either. It's quite a disturbing image. That's not to say that beards don't look good, but on me, that is not what I would have preferred. When I first started looking at options for hair removal, I found that the two main options that many clinics would provide does tend to be clinics or salons that do tend to provide this service. Some hospitals will do so as well, and it does tend to be something that is more private. Certainly in the United Kingdom, and I trust in other places as well, I certainly employed this service privately, and I began with electrolysis. I thought electrolysis will work. I wasn't so correct, because I like the idea of electrolysis because it's pinpoint. It is targeting hair by hair by hair by hair, but it doesn't target everything all at once like laser does. Laser tends to take up to maybe 10 to 15 minutes. It can be really, really quick depending on the area you're doing and how much of it you're doing. Of course, if you're doing the legs, it will take a long time, but if you're just doing the beard area, it doesn't take long at all. Or smaller areas, it doesn't take as long. But overall, laser hair removal is a lot quicker. However, with electrolysis, it can take hours. Usually when I would go to the clinic, it would take up to an hour. I would take an hour time slot. So they go from hair to hair to hair. And the way that it works with electrolysis is that they actually send a very, very fine needle down the hair shaft. If I'm almost to give an example, I should take a fan brush. This one is actually unbranded. And I will explain. So this is our hair. And this, my hand, represents the skin. And down here, this represents the follicle. What electrolysis does, and the aim of electrolysis, they send a very fine probe down the hair to the follicle and then send an electric current, which then blasts the follicle, killing the follicle. And of course, they pluck the hair. And if they're able to pluck the hair out with the follicle attached, that usually means that the hair is killed. It almost burns the hair off, and it seals where the hair grows. It really is burning the hair off and burning the follicle off. Now, of course, this procedure takes forever, and the many different styles and technologies for electrolysis have changed and developed throughout the past several decades. I know that there are different services where you can do everything all at once, and it might take up to several hours to do, where they do all the hair. But the point that I must notify you with is that they can only target the hair if the hair is actually connected to the bloodstream, if it's growing. So if the hair is in the shredding process, or if it has been dislodged from the follicle, it doesn't actually target and kill the follicle or the root. You have to think of it like a root. So the hair has to be connected to its root before it can be killed. If it is in the shredding process, it doesn't have any effect. So when I first went for electrolysis, my problem areas have always been these slight sections here, and the hair actually grows in that direction. So it's really annoying. It doesn't go straight down, it grows sideways. I don't know what it's trying to do. Now, I went to a clinic here in London, and I used to go once a week, and I would spend an hour there, and I had in total 10 hours worth. Now, I didn't necessarily find that there were that great results because there was quite a lot of hair. I think I would have had to have spent many, many hours a week trying to get the hair out with electrolysis. So I don't think that you can really kill the hair off with just electrolysis on its own. You can, of course, but it is a very long procedure. Unless you're prepared to sit down and spend maybe days in there, then I don't necessarily think that it will be that immediate. Of course, again, it is only effective if the hair is actually growing. It is not effective if the hair is in the shredding process. So I had gone to the clinic thinking electrolysis is going to save me from this terrible growth on my chin. I'm going to be able to get rid of my facial hair. I wasn't so correct. So after I had had all my electrolysis sessions, I decided I'm going to try laser. So the laser works in a similar way, but they use light technology or infrared. I'm not going to go into the science of it. I'm just going to explain my own experience. I trust if you are considering investing in such services, or if you wish to remove hair from any part of your body, you will do a little bit more research on the processes and of course whether or not it'll work for you. So with the laser, it actually targets melanin. And I remember when the technician said this to me, I then said, but won't that burn the skin of somebody with darker skin if they have a higher concentration of melanin? I trust that they use a lower setting, and if you are somebody with darker skin, I would recommend that you do research and of course maybe speak to more than one technician at more than one clinic to see if laser is correct for you. I would recommend that to anybody, to speak to more than one clinic, to speak to more than one person. Also, hair removal is not cheap. So I would always make the recommendation that you have more than one option on the table to go for. Again, I'm taking my brush to demonstrate. With laser hair removal, it's very similar. They zap the skin with a very powerful light. It sends a current of heat down the skin, burning the follicle. When I went for my laser hair removal appointments, you could actually smell the hair burning. So first of all, I was instructed to shave the hair on my beard area, and I had from ear to ear done. So they would draw a line across my face there, and then on the neck. So to connect around like that. So all of this section was zapped with the laser. I would have to shave all the hair that was there. Now, that whole area isn't hairy, I will tell you that. But there's hair here, and there was a lot of hair around here. And I never really had a moustache, but there was a few odd little hairs here and there. So I would have to come in with all of that clean and freshly shaven. and then they would zap everything. You would actually smell the hair burning. It smells like burnt hair, and in the moment it is incredibly painful. It hurts, but it is so fast. I find that it certainly doesn't have a lingering pain, certainly not for me, and my skin, even though it is more on the sensitive side of things, it didn't necessarily react to it. Afterwards, sometimes I'd be a little red, but not too much. Of course, the technician would apply aloe vera gel and then sun protection. It is very important as well, I must point this out, that if you are undergoing laser hair removal, that you must use sun protection. Because laser hair removal, it damages the skin, you are more prone to sun damage. So I would definitely say wear sun protection anyway, but during the period for which that you are getting your laser hair removal done, wear sun protection, because the sun can of course aggravate the skin, because your skin is more susceptible to sun damage when it has been weakened. But SPF and sun protection should always be worn all year round. The sun is not our friend. Well, there's ambivalence there. A misconception about me is that I don't like the sun, or that I might burn or incinerate when I go into the sun. I absolutely love the sun. I love sunlight, but only when it's on a postcard. Laser hair removal, it is painful, I will say that. Be prepared for the pain if you're going, but it's very, very swift pain. It's very, very short. It does feel like a burn. You are getting burnt, but it is very, very short. It doesn't take long. I certainly found it very painful, but as they say, beauty is pain. One must always have fortitude in the face of adverse. With the electrolysis, however, it wasn't necessarily painful there and then. It was just more uncomfortable. And I also had to hold a metal device in my hand so that the electric current would flow. It isn't comfortable, but I wouldn't say that it is painful. However, I do think that it may have had a chemical change on me. I think that it may have affected something in my body, because every time that I would go to the clinic and have the electrolysis done, several hours later, maybe 1 or 2 hours later, I would feel really, really awful emotionally. I would not understand why, but it would only be on the days that I had had electrolysis done. However, with electrolysis, I don't think I would have electrolysis done again. I'm certainly more in favour for laser hair removal. This may be different for you. It may work differently for your hair type, for your skin colour. Laser hair removal, because it targets melanin, does tend to be most effective on very, very pale skin like my own with very, very dark hair. So if you have dark hair and very pale skin, the laser hair removal will be very effective for you. The hair that grows here does tend to be a brown colour, but there are some blonde hairs and some white hairs, but it isn't dark. And I would definitely say as well that laser hair removal, and certainly the procedure that I went through with laser hair removal, it doesn't necessarily kill the hair there and then. It has to have many goes before it starts to kill the hair. Certainly in my case, it had to have many zaps before it killed the hair. In total, I underwent 12 sessions of laser hair removal. However, there's still a little bit of the hair there. I do intend to continue using laser hair removal. I may go for another 12 sessions, which was every 6 weeks. It does tend to be every 6 weeks. That's when they try to catch the hair in its growth period. Of course, I trust that is a standard estimation of the growth period. For many people, it may be different. I think everyone's varies to a degree, but I trust that is a standardized one. Now, with the laser hair removal, I did tend to find that my hair became sparser and it became softer. I didn't really have that much of a growth. There was hair here, there and everywhere, but it wasn't as if though I was cousin it. I didn't have lots of hair. Seeing as it hadn't been invited, it had to go. It's also quite difficult as well when you are somebody that wears makeup to shave and then apply makeup on top of skin that is raw, having shaved. My skin always gets really raw when I shave it. And then the next day to have to shave it again and apply makeup on top of it, it just becomes very prickly and the skin starts to look a little bit like a scrotum. So I don't necessarily recommend it. I would say that if you're somebody that wants to wear makeup and has facial hair, but wants to get rid of their facial hair, make that your priority. I, of course, before I had any form of facial hair, there'd be some blonde hairs here and there, and I'd only have to shave maybe once a month. And it was never a proper production. It was just taking a little razor and just taking off the fluff. But I would certainly say that my own skin interprets shaving as if though it is an attack. Almost in the same way that when you get a cut or when a scar, the skin starts to reproduce and creates a scab over the cut or the scar to protect it whilst it is healing. My skin almost goes into this mold once it has been shaved, so it can become quite red and inflamed. Certainly on other parts of the body, that is the case. It doesn't respond well to shaving. Because of the nature of my hair, it was always quite sparse, but it did have strength, so there was clusters here, there and everywhere, but it wasn't a solid growth, as I stated already. So sometimes I have been able to wax it, and I know I will receive a little bit of opposition to saying that waxing is a good option for removing beard hair. Many beauty therapists and cosmetologists do not offer the service of male beard waxing because the hair can be so strong. Sometimes there can be a lot of blood. Now, if you are somebody that is male biologically and you choose to look more female, or maybe you are somebody that wants to look more female, or maybe you are just a male that doesn't want their beard, I would say try waxing. It can cause ingrown hairs, and I know I will receive some form of opposition to recommending that. However, certainly on me, I think because the hairs are so sparse and the nature of my own hair, I'm able to wax the hair, and the hair will stay away for 2 weeks. I can wear makeup every day. I don't end up with this rawness in the skin. Also, when you shave every day, it just obliterates the skin. When you see men that have to shave every day, their skin becomes so coarse. It looks so coarse. It looks like something you would polish granite with. Laser is a great way of slowing down the regrowth pattern as well. Certainly now, even in the strongest areas where the hair is still very strong, I will not have regrowth or the hair coming back in until maybe a day later. Whereas before, it would be the very next day in the morning. I'd be able to feel prickles everywhere. Whereas now, it won't be until the evening of the next day. Because I wear makeup not every day, I do prefer waxing my beard as well as waxing the eyebrows. I just find that the hair stays away a lot longer. It also comes in a lot softer when the hair is regrowing. When I shave my beard and my eyebrows, I do tend to find that the hair is incredibly prickly because it has been cut. It is left blunt, so my chin can sometimes feel and look a little bit like a cactus. Also, having hair and shaving the hair can create texture. Sometimes you will notice in some of my films, it's almost as if there's a sandpapery, grainy appearance on the chin, certainly in these areas, even though when I apply foundation and powder and the skin is incredibly smooth. I mean, just to touch, it's very, very smooth and soft. However, it does create an element of texture. So by removing the hair, this will of course remove the texture. Even though I have had the majority of my facial hair removed, whenever I shave, I give my skin a thorough massage. I really move my fingers around and push in and push in and push in. I use some of the DHC cleansing oil. I've also produced for you here how I remove heavy makeup. I shall leave the applicable link within the description of this film because the techniques and the procedure for which that I use within that film showcases the massage methods for which that I use. I use these methods before I shave. So I massage the skin and then I exfoliate it with something slightly coarser, perhaps a wet cloth, a wet face towel, or maybe I will put on a face mask that has slight exfoliants in it and then remove it. Before I shave, I then take a hot towel and I just press it onto the skin, just to prep my skin before I shave. I also prefer the old-fashioned way of shaving, which is probably a surprise to nobody, but I don't like those modern creams or the oils. Of course, you will find what works for you. I also like to use the DHC oil to shave sometimes. However, I have found that the traditional shaving cream tends to work best for me. This is the Taylor of Old Bond Street Sandalwood Shaving Cream, and they've been going for a very long time. They were established in 1854. I actually remember when they first launched, but I've been a fan of this cream for a long time, and it's not expensive at all. And I purchased this several months ago, and it has lasted a very long time. But the way that this works is that you create a lather with one of these shaving type brushes. These are both very cheap options. Of course, they vary in price depending on the retailer. I tend to wet the brush first of all, then dab it damp into the product and create a lather, and then go around it on the face creating a lather. That also exfoliates the skin at the same time because the brush is quite coarse. The reason it is important to exfoliate the skin before shaving, it's certainly the beard area, and that's not to say go and use sandpaper to exfoliate. Try to use something that's very gentle. It's because it will remove the dead skin, which makes it easier to access the hair and remove the hair, but it also lifts the hairs into position By exfoliating it, it lifts the hairs up. Now, I am very fond of the traditional razors. This is actually just a cheap one. It works like that. The blade is very fine, and I always shave against the grain, which of course can cause irritation, but I don't find that I can get a really clean, neat, polished shave unless I shave against the grain. I also like to shave to the point where you cannot see the hair at all. I don't like to look as if though I have 5 o'clock shadow at all. It's not a very flattering look. It can be a little bit difficult to do these certain areas here, so I do tend to use just a regular razor. This one is by Gillette, and I'm able to take it up and round the chin a lot easier than with the traditional razor. And I would definitely say if you're going to use one of these, try it out on your arm first of all. Try removing hair on the part of the body first of all. I have found laser hair removal to be very, very helpful personally, even though I think that this experience of hair removal will be useful to many people like myself. Perhaps you are somebody that is wishing to reassign your gender. When males take female hormone supplements as an adult, it does tend to reduce the facial hair, the beard hair, which of course is caused by male hormone. Of course, there are many life-changing implications from using female hormone. I can confirm to you now, I have never employed the use of female hormone at any point within my life, but it is certainly a useful component for combating beard growth. I'm unable to provide advice regarding female hormones. That of course is an area that I am not familiar with in any capacity. And that of course is not to exclude that many women who may have an underproduction or an overproduction of the female hormones within their own bodies will have an excess of facial hair. We can certainly generalize when it comes to hair removal, as well as different types of hair on people. However, I do believe that when you make the conscious choice to remove your hair by whatever means, it has to be most suiting to you. And my main imperative when I sat down today to create this film and to share with you what I know and my own experience of laser hair removal as well as electrolysis hair removal is to really give you more clearance as what is the best option for you. Because when I decided to remove my beard, I was determined to hear as much advice as possible before I went ahead and had hair removal procedures to make sure that I was picking the best option for me. I do have some remaining growth on my chin, certainly on the chin, and there's a few scattered hairs here and there. However, I do prefer to wax them out. When hair is waxed, it does tend to stay away a lot longer, and it does tend to come in again a lot finer and a lot softer. Because when you shave, as I trust you will have discovered, the hair comes back as sharp as knives. And I certainly hope that by sharing my own experience and my own knowledge of the matter, I have hopefully given you some clearance about hair removal. What I will say is that you must source and find the best procedure for you, whether that be electrolysis or laser or the other kinds of hair removal that are available on the market, whether they be permanent or semi-permanent. Try out different places. Of course, it costs a small fortune, but I thoroughly recommend that you just keep at it until you are no longer pained by the unwanted hair for which that you may possess. But despite the length of time that it takes to remove all of the hair for which that you want gone, and of course the cost, I certainly say that it is worth it, because life of course improves once you are lifted of a burden. But I have thoroughly enjoyed creating this film for you here today and sharing my own experience, and I hope that you find today's film to be either interesting, useful, helpful or beneficial. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and of course, take care. Bye!